Central State volleyball player, all conference player, Hailey White. Hailey, thanks for joining us today, and we're going to talk a little bit about your experience, first year player in the program. But first, if you could go take us back. How did you get started in the sport, and what ultimately helped you make the decision that this would be your primary sport?
Well, growing up, I grew up in a family of basketball players and baseball players. My mom and aunt were the only ones that did volleyball, so I didn't really know much about it. And honestly, I hated playing basketball. It was just something to do. And then I remember I was 9 years old and I went with my mom and aunt to a practice because they used to coach club. And I wanted to play with the girls so bad. And so they put me in the YMCA and I was fairly advanced for my age with some of the skills and techniques. So they put me into club and they didn't have enough room on the younger team. So at 9 years old, instead of being on a 10s team, I was put on a 13s fours team, which is like kind of crazy for a 9 year old to be on this 13-year-old team. So that's when I just kind of like learned the basics and I wanted to stick with it. I wanted to play with my own age group the next year. So I stuck with it for one more year so I could get the proper coaching that I needed for my level. And um, I just had so much fun. I just love the adrenaline you get with it through the rallies. And I was like, this is my sport. Like, I want to keep playing, I want to keep training. So for a couple of years, I was always on the lower teams just because I wasn't, I was advanced at such a young age, but I just wasn't ready to be on a higher level team. And I remember the year, it was 13s. We were finally able to just do much more and the coach gave me the opportunity to be on the higher team and I had so much fun. I advanced so much and I think that was like the year of like, okay, I want to go far with this. Like my aunt informed me so much about how I could take it to the collegiate level and I was like, okay, that's my goal. I want to do this for long term.
And we're here with Hailey White, all conference freshman player on our Central State volleyball team. You mentioned kind of coming up in the sport, but give us an idea mainly about where you're from, and of course you're from the Southwest area of the country, and all the way coming all the way here to Ohio. But give us a taste of where you're from and what it was like growing up there.
So I'm from Tempe, Arizona, born and raised. It's we don't have winters compared to Ohio at all. The coldest to me is 70 degrees. And so pretty much this is more like a suburban area. Like it's a small city kind of vibe, but I love it here. It's the weather is just right. During the summers it can be brutal, but it's only for a couple months and we have such diverse schools that from my area that I'm in at least, we have such diverse schools that the area I grew up in, I kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like flourished in it and made so many friends here, made done so much accomplishments here, not just with volleyball but with other stuff in school. And this is honestly like a place that's home.
And you talk a lot about your accomplishments, both on the court, of course, but off the court. You're a pretty strong high school student, academically involved in a lot of things, extracurricular activities. Talk about that.
Well, for all throughout high school, I was in student council. Like that was my biggest thing. I was my class president all 3 years, and then my senior year, I was student body president, which is like the president of the school. And we did so many like charity work. We did school events. I planned my junior prom, which ended up getting canceled because of COVID. That was such a that was an experiment. Um, and what else did I do? I was my school's advocate to like be chosen to go to like certain like leadership conferences. So I remember my sophomore year, I was chosen to go to GCU to learn how to be a mentor to those who are suffering from mental illness and who are contemplating suicide. And I was my school's advocate for that. Then I got picked to go to a like a meeting once a month with the district board to talk about how we can better our school and where we want our school to be in 5 years. And even though I wasn't going to be there in 5 years, it was how can we start the process now and what can we start changing now. So I was very involved with my school.
And we're talking here with Hailey White, freshman all-conference player with our Central State volleyball team. And a follow-up question to that, you mentioned COVID, right? Not only did you have to deal with COVID your final year of high school, but also coming to Central State your first year, a lot of different things with COVID affecting game schedules, fans, no fans, those type of things. How do you guys deal with that as student athletes?
I think the adjustment is hard as a student athlete because as an athlete who plays like indoor sports, like the adrenaline really comes from the crowd. Like we get a lot of our energy and our willpower to just keep going is from the crowd because of the cheering and like the chanting. Like it's it's a 100% like what I love about the sport is the fans. And I think that having to adjust with it, it teaches you a lot as an athlete. Like, okay, during this time we don't have the fans to depend on to bring us back up with their energy. We need to depend on each other more during this time and trust each other more to really push through this game because we don't have the the energy throughout the gym. We have each other. And I think that's a really good like team bonding experience too because being that this is a sport for so long, that's normal to us as the fans. And then to not have them, it's like, okay, we need to learn to trust each other a little bit more to push more and to win.
Yeah, and you guys did a lot of winning, which we'll talk about later. 23 wins, first season under Coach Ray Lewis, and a lot of new girls, including yourself. We'll talk about that a little later. But for you yourself, you talked about wanting to play collegiately when you started playing club and knowing this was your sport. But hit a little bit on the recruiting process. It's not common someone from Arizona comes all the way to a school in Ohio. So talk about your recruiting process and why you ultimately chose to come here.
Wow, recruiting is so hard. And anyone who says it was easy is lying because it's a difficult process. It can have you feeling down on yourself. It can have you feeling, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Because we started recruiting my 16th year, which is when I like started sending out emails and just being more into it. But then because of COVID, dead periods, visits started getting canceled, coaches weren't reaching out as much, and it was like, okay, well, this is still what I want to do. Like, I don't know, how do I go about this? So then, honestly, like a year later, when sports were back up, 17s, um, I'm sorry, yeah, 17s and 18s, it was like, okay, we got to take it more seriously. Like, instead of 50 emails, you need to send 100. And that's what I was doing. Like, honestly, I started emailing schools I had no interest in. I just needed to get my name out there. And I remember it was after club season. I was like, oh my gosh, I have one more season. What am I going to do? Like, I was really like scared of my next move because I wanted to play. Um, and no coaches were reaching out. And luckily for me, um, Ray had still lived in Arizona at the time before he got the job, and he came to one of my high school games, which was one of the worst high school games my school has ever had. But he saw potential, and that was honestly like a really big blessing to me that even though it was a tough game and that it was hard and it was bad, he saw potential and believed in me. And so me and him kept connection. I did my research on Central State, and I just thought it was another blessing because I was like, oh my gosh, I've been looking at HBCUs recently. Like before COVID, I had never once thought about going to HBCU. I didn't really know what they were. But then afterwards, I started doing my research, and I hadn't heard of Central State before Ray. But then when he told me it was, I did my research, saw what you guys were about, and I just, I loved it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Like it's a smaller HBCU, which is okay. I'm used to small schools, and it just felt like it was a calling. It just felt right.
And it worked out pretty good. Seems to be a good decision so far. Like we said earlier, all conference, helped lead that team to 23 wins, something that hasn't been done before. So for you guys, the 23 wins, you personally getting all conference as a freshman, and then also making a deep run in the SIAC tournament. Um, the feelings being part of that resurgence, kind of take us through that, right? Just throughout the season, and then once the season was over and reflecting, like, oh wow, we did this. How did that feel?
Honestly, coming in, I wasn't even expecting to go that far just because we were such a new team, a bunch of new girls who have never played with each other. And being that we connected so well and were able to start off, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Start off so strong in the beginning. It was kind of exciting. I was like, okay, yeah, let's run with it. Like, let's just see where this takes us. Like, I have no expectations because we're a new team. It's okay. Like, we're not expected to do much. And I think it was about the middle of the season when um I don't remember which game it was, but oh, it was Ashland. I remember it was Ashland, and I was like, we really just showed out and we just beat a team that this school has won never beaten before. This team, the Ashland team, came out thinking we were easy, and we showed them like, no, we're not. And we just battled, and it was such a fun game, and the adrenaline was there, and I was just like, we're gonna go far. I was like, this team, we're new, yeah, but we're gonna go far. We have a connection and a bond that will take us far itself. And it was just exciting to keep going. And then the the compliments around campus of like, you guys are doing so good, like congratulations, oh my gosh, when do you guys play next, when's your next home game? I was like, oh my gosh, like we're literally making history, like this has never happened before, like, and I'm a freshman, like it was just crazy. And then going into the tournament, of course, being that we made it this far, my expectations were to win all the way through. And I truly believe we could have won. And you know, at the end of the day, it just came down to um I think the game that we lost in the third day, it was a great battle. We two great teams are playing against each other, and we both really wanted it. It just came down to skill wise and who could perfect them the most. You know, it had nothing to do with who wanted it more because we both wanted it 5 sets. It's been a long couple days, and knowing like losing that game, I wasn't upset. I was very proud of us, and I was like, we had a great season. We really did. As a freshman, we had a great season, and it's amazing to know that I was a part of making history at this school as a freshman.
And it's a team, like you said, composed primarily of freshmen and new players, and even the returners. They were a year away from volleyball because of COVID, and you guys were under, first-year coach and Ray Lewis. So, talk a little bit about playing for Coach Lewis. We all see on the sidelines sometimes he has different ways of motivating the players, but how has he helped you and motivated you?
I absolutely love his coaching. I love how he breaks things down. I love that being that we were a new team together and some of us skill wise were different, that he still would take the time to go over basic skills and and to like have expectations for us. Like, hey, he wasn't the type of coach where like you should already know this. It was like, okay, if you like need help, like let me explain it. And his motivation was just to be like, um, you have to like it was mostly just like you guys have to believe in yourselves. He's a coach. He can't come out there and play with us. At the end of the day, he's just there leading us to victory, but it's on the core and it's each other that we need to have the expectations for. Hold each other accountable. He always told us we need to hold each other accountable because when we're out there, he can't do anything but coach us. It's just each other. And I just love his techniques and just the discipline that he puts upon us and the expectations he puts upon us because we are in college now, we aren't in club, we aren't in high school. Um, there are expectations that need to be met, and I one of my biggest things were every practice, like I honestly loved him, no, like conditioning and all, like I really did because at the end of the day, you see that we got stronger, it made us stronger, and he wasn't the type of coach to kill us. Like he wasn't going to run us into the ground. He was like, "You guys are conditioning because we had a goal for this drill. You didn't meet the goal. Now you condition. And at the end of the day, that conditioning is going to help you win this drill. And it leads into gameplay. And it really showed at times. Um, Whereas, like, you see a lot of other collegiate coaches who just want to kill their kids, run them into the ground, just treat them like dirt. And that's definitely the opposite of what he did. He treated us like his own daughters, if he had any, and like we were just one big family. And it was always nice to go to a coach to trust that we trusted him so much to go to him about anything. It was honestly, I love playing for him.
And, we talk about the success once again. As a freshman, you make all SIAC, multiple player of the week honors, one of the top players in the conference, hitting percentage wise and in blocks. So you take that as a freshman and already accomplishing a lot as a freshman and as a team. But moving forward, where do you want to go as a player?
I just want to keep progressing. I definitely think I did have a great season, but I think I could do better. I really do. There's more to learn. There's more training to be done, and I think if you feel like you're at your peak, then you haven't done enough to feel like you've gone there. And I definitely think I just need I there's so much more I want to accomplish in volleyball. I don't plan on like after 4 or 5 years like doing anything with it. I'm really just doing it for fun. Um, but I hope that in the future I can teach my kids, teach my family, and be a mentor for my cousin. My cousin's younger than me, and she's about to go through this process in a couple of years. So I want to be there for her. Um, and yeah.
You mentioned freshman, 4 years from now, you plan on graduating and moving on. What do you want to do once you've graduated from Central State?
Um, I plan to move back home and get a job for the moment, but I do plan on hopefully maybe attending one of the colleges here and going into a doctorate program for my major, which is psychology. And I'd like to go to the FBI one day. So that's the primary goal, is to become an FBI agent at the BAU.
Wow, very cool, very cool. And we're here with freshman volleyball player Hailey White, maybe Agent White in the future. The last question we have as we close out today. You've had success now in your first year on the college level, and you kind of know what it takes. But what advice would you give to a potential high school student that's looking to play on the next level, perhaps looking at Central State and other schools? What advice would you give them?
Honestly, just to work hard. You like, I can't emphasize that enough. Like, hard work and discipline will get you far. It really will. You have to like, one thing I was always taught to growing up was attitude. A coach will take a person who isn't as athletic as the next because of their attitude. And just keep in mind that their coaches are always watching you, not just playing, but how are you on the sideline? How are you on your breaks? How are you acting and treating your teammates? How are you acting, treating your coaches? It's not just about athletically, but how are you as a person? And honestly, you got to work hard at each of them. You got to make sure, like, okay, is this someone that my parents would be proud of? Is this someone that like, if my parents around, would they be okay with how I'm acting? And I think a lot of athletes don't see um that it's not always about your athletic ability, that it's about you as a person, like, and so just got to keep working hard. You got to stay disciplined and keep making goals, keep setting a goal for yourself athletically, personally, and what you want to accomplish, because at the end of the day, you might reach a goal. What's your next goal then? Okay, I made it to the collegiate level. What's your next goal?
Excellent. We're here as we're closing out today with all conference freshman volleyball player Hailey White and future FBI agent Hailey White. So for those that are watching, you learn a little bit more about our student athletes. And we thank everyone for joining us today and watching. You can learn more about Hailey White and the Central State volleyball team by visiting maraudersports.com, as well as following our social media channels.